So this morning, as part of our exploring the first of the 3 hours, the response to what we've all been through, one of the key response agencies has been the food bank, which is so integral to what has been happening in the last year. And so delighted to have a chat with Phil and Emma about how you've responded. So Phil, if we start with you, in what ways did the food bank have to maybe reimagine itself at the very, very start? What was it like for being a response agency for food bank?
Well, it was incredibly stressful. It's a very long time ago, March last year, but we had to sort of turn our services upside down while everybody else was shutting up and going home. So we were determined that we weren't going to shut because so many people rely on us for food and for feeding, and it's something that we couldn't face shutting. So we turned everything up on its head. A lot of our volunteers, amazing volunteers, had to go home and stay there. So we advertised for new people, and loads of people came out of the woodwork from all across the community, all sorts of different backgrounds. And it's been really lovely to get to know them. So we had new volunteers. We had to introduce completely new ways of working. We had to go to a delivery only model. People weren't allowed to come in the building. We had to quarantine all the donations in for 3 days. We were incredibly blessed with a lot of support from St Andrew's, the host church, who basically let us use the whole of the ground floor of the building, which was just amazing. So we had all this room in their amazing hall to space out and quarantine our donations. And then the donations started piling in, which is absolutely brilliant. Some of the major supermarkets have just been fantastic. But then also the phone calls started coming. As the other agencies had to close their doors, people couldn't get appointments, so they just rang us directly. People were often very distressed, very anxious, very upset, not sure where their food was coming from. And it took a while for the sort of government response to get going. And it was the same time when actually there wasn't any food on the supermarket shelves and everybody ran out of pasta and toilet roll. So we had a very, very busy April. It was incredibly busy, just getting parcels out the door. We had a whole new team of voluntary drivers to take parcels to people. So it was me and Dave, amazing Dave, who basically worked flat out for a good few months. After the end of April and May, it sort of stabilised a bit as the government food boxes came out. Do you remember those? If anybody's had one of the government boxes. And people started to become a little less anxious, but people were starting to lose their jobs. And that was quite difficult. So Dave sent us technological, away from pen and paper and onto a computer system in the middle of May, ordered new phones, got a new remote printer. So we finally went to remote working around the middle of May, which really helped us respond as demand was still very busy. But so the other thing that we'd had to do was, because we couldn't get hold of tinned produce, so because we were limited to a maximum of 3, we set up a wholesaler who supplied us with fresh fruit and vegetables, which was absolutely brilliant. So we had fresh milk, fresh potatoes, fresh fruit, fresh veg, all in the St Andrew's kitchen. So that was a huge part of what we did. And it was so appreciated by people to have that. But it was a huge amount of work. And in the end, sort of by the end of June, beginning of July, supply had stabilised back in the shops. So we decided to stop doing that. And demand has sort of settled down a bit as well. We've noticed a huge increase in families coming forward this year as opposed to single people. Very concerned about feeding children in the school holidays, as always, so things like that. But the amount of work has just been huge. So we had conversations over the summer about how to share that out a bit more. We got a few more volunteers involved in sharing the phone, and then we eventually recruited an assistant. Hooray! And there she is. So absolutely delighted to welcome Emma at the beginning of September, which has made a massive difference to the running of the food bank day by day, which has been really, really helpful.
Brilliant. Thanks, Phil. And you were talking about a lot of the donations, and what I noticed is that not just the food was coming in, but there was a lot of cash being offered as well in lieu of people being able to, which actually has made it possible to make Emma's role a reality, which was as much needed as the tins and
yeah, we are so thankful. We launched an emergency appeal back at the beginning of April when we saw the way that it was going. And people have just been so generous. And the money still comes in, direct debit, standing orders, checks in the post, cash on the doorstep. We've been supported by a number of charitable trusts and grants, and it's just amazing. So we have been able to do the fresh food ordering. We've been able to recruit Emma. We've got all sorts of things that would not have been possible without that sort of financial backing. And it means that we're not as concerned going into this year because we have that buffer there. I remember you going to Booker's, Phil, filling up the van with lots of tins.
I've never bought so much corned beef in my life. That's it's quite remarkable. Yeah. Emma, what's it been like for you coming into the food bank in this role as assistant, and what's it like now, and as you look forward to ongoing response recovery?
Yeah, well, I was so pleased to be able to get back involved, really. I felt stuck during the summer at home with my children, and as much as I love my children, it was hard to get involved, so I was so pleased to be able to get back to it. Yeah, I mean, it has been transformed. It is now sort of run quite differently. Our volunteers, lots of them are totally different people to who they were, the ones we had before, and they're lovely. Many of them aren't involved in our church, and lots of them aren't involved in any church actually. But they are a brilliant bunch of people, and I've really enjoyed getting to know them and working with them and Phil. And yeah, I guess the things that have struck me are the slightly different way that we're working. So like Phil explained, lots of the people that we support, we used to be referred by agencies, whereas now lots of people just ring us up and ask us for food, and they're not being supported by agencies. So I guess going forward, that is a challenge for me and Phil and the team to think about how we find support for these people. We're hoping to maybe start a drop-in morning where we can get people in and have other people sort of to give them a bit of advice and support. But yeah, so that, I guess, going forward is something that we need to address and look into, because there are just so many people who are in need but sort of don't have any way of getting out of that need. You know, we don't want to keep on giving people food parcels long term. You know, it would be really good to be able to find other ways for them to get support. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, the other thing that is amazing is the amount of food that comes into food bank, you know, every week. You know, it is quite astounding sometimes, you know, the amount of food that comes in from Tesco's and Morrison's in particular, that we process and then find somewhere to put and then give out. Yeah, so that's another thing that has really astounded me. I mean, having had a break in a way from being there and then coming back in September. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, we were chatting just before that food bank is in itself, prior to COVID, a response agency responding to what is a crisis anyway. And going forward, it's not just settling into another, you're going to continue as a response agency. In what ways do you feel that because we're the church doing it, because of the Christian mandate, how does that fuel what you're doing? Especially, as you say, there are a lot of volunteers who are not part of our church or any church at all, or any particular faith affiliation. How do you feel that it fuels what we're doing?
Well, the first thing I would say is that we don't give up. We just don't stop, and we won't unless we actually forced to for some reason. And that's part of we don't answer to anybody apart from God, really. At the end of the day, you know, it's his food, he distributes it as he sees fit, and we're just sort of the middle people. So I think that's something that we have kept going and just kept going and kept going, no matter what the consequences of that have been. And I think that's led people to to trust us. The agencies trust us, that the people who ring trust us, and that really gives us a foot in the door when we then try and help them through to recovery, whether that's referring them to Ruth or referring them on to further grants or for a meeting with somebody else. You know, they know that if we say we're going to do something, then we'll do it.
Mm.
And I think that message has got through also to the volunteers. I'd love to talk more with the volunteers about the faith-based stuff, you know, behind us. And there's lots of resources we could use to do that. We just haven't had time. But we have those little conversations from time to time. It's interesting talking to them about why we don't do some things as well as why we do others. You're treating people with dignity and respect, you know, and all those sorts of things, but from a Christian perspective, in that God made them and God loves them, and he doesn't want anyone to suffer.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that really helps a great deal. Again, I mean, you threatened beforehand you could talk for ages and ages and ages about this, and I would really encourage people to talk to you whenever you have I was going to say not a down moment, but whenever people are interested, because actually there is something really tangible and kingdom about what Food Bank is doing, and the way it's linked up with so many other aspects of the kingdom work that's going on in response and ongoing response. So can I say thank you to you too in particular, but also that you represent a bigger team of volunteers, donators, and just the churches that have been involved, but and agencies. So thank you to you for keeping on going. And we're really grateful, and thank you for being a blessing to us and for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
So, morning everyone. I'm Liz, and this is Kirsty with me on the screen. We've been asked by Phil and Lisa to just talk about our response and thoughts around response to the COVID pandemic as GPs. So, Kirsty, what are your first memories of the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, well, mine actually started over a year ago. So it was last January. I had contact with a potential COVID positive patient. And it was at the time when it was all still very much overseas, and we didn't really have anything in the UK, and none of us really knew what was happening. Me and a colleague were told we had to go home and quarantine until we had test results on the patient. And it was really strange because, you know, Sophie had gone to London for the weekend, Andy was still at work, and all of a sudden you sort of get this sort of picture about, you know, how it was going to spread and the impact on us, you know, because I couldn't go to work, I couldn't work remotely, I didn't have remote access to the sort of IT system for work. And it was really sort of like quite daunting to suddenly think all of our processes and the way that we carry on could literally just be stopped like that. And it was quite scary to think, you know, I'm not going to be the first GP that gets told to go home and quarantine. And it was really daunting, that sort of the potential impact on our service as GPs to our community. How about you? What was your first memory of it?
Well, I think similar, sort of worrying about how bad it will be and hearing the news filter in. I was thinking back to the swine flu, I think it was 2009, and I can remember visiting with all the PPE on and thinking, well, maybe it'll be a bit like that, and it won't be as bad as it actually has been. And then, of course, we went into seeing patients with it and the schools being shut. And I think the realization was that we're in this for the long haul was when both of the girls' exams were cancelled, and you suddenly think, right, this is all ramping up and this is quite serious. But yeah, quite scary, I think, at times.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
yeah, what about personally? Because this has impacted everybody, hasn't it? What did you feel?
Yeah. It was really bizarre. One of the first things I did was find my will and check that my will was up to date, because at the start you'd heard about so many medical staff and nurses dying overseas from it, and we genuinely, like you just think, oh my goodness, we're in this for the long haul. How bad is this going to get? And that's what I did. I was like, right, is the family going to be all right? You know, I'm going to be on the front line. Better check I've got everything set up.
Yeah. And
what about you? How did you feel?
Well, similar here. I think I was terrified I was going to get COVID and bring it home. And so, yes, we did a similar thing, make sure that everything was in place. And I had quite a few sleepless nights, waking up in the middle of the night, worrying. And I think I also felt that I was quite angry. How could God let this happen? And the sleepless nights definitely were part of the worry. And in the end, I think I had to just go back to choosing faith, not fear. And that has helped. I wouldn't say that's always been the answer, but that has helped. Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, everything's changed at work for both of us, hasn't it? We're absolutely. In a really small town, and we're used to doing things how we've always done it, but things have changed. How have things changed at your surgery?
Well, yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago, I think it was before Christmas, I walked through my waiting room on a Friday afternoon. Now, you're the same as me on, Friday afternoon in the winter. It's normally the waiting room is jam-packed and everyone's coughing over each other. There's all these miserable, hot, snotty, coughing, vomiting children who are just so unhappy and crying, and there's noise and busyness. And I walked through my waiting room and there wasn't a single person in my waiting room. But not just that we were protecting them and not letting them all sit in the same room, but they're just not ill. We're just not seeing the people who were poorly. The kids are not getting poorly like they used to. And I mean, I heard a professor of pediatrics last week on Radio 4 say, we've just not had the ill kids in. Normally the hospitals are jam-packed. They're just not there. And it's not that they're necessarily staying at home. It's that they're not catching these infections this year. And we've seen that across so many elements of infectious diseases, not just COVID. And you can't help going, we really need to learn a lot from this. Going back to those packed waiting rooms and all that infection risk, that can't ever happen again.
Not a good idea, is it? It has been quite amazing, and I suppose that's quite a positive out of it, that there have been reduced admissions for children and reduced serious illnesses for the kids, and reduced flu as well. I think there's been one case over the winter, which is amazing. More people are vaccinated, but also there's less exposure and more hand washing and mask wearing. It's although it's not been easy, it's perhaps had its benefits. Yeah. I know. And
what else do you think? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what else do you think's been like a real positive? I mean, always does feel like it's been a really hard year, but what else do you think about positive stuff that's come out of this?
Well, I think that the huge positive now that we're running with is our vaccine programme, which has to be it's just so uplifting, so rewarding to run the clinics and to see people who haven't been out for almost 12 months. People have been in tears when we've given them the vaccine, and it's so nice for people to want to come to see us. Normally they don't really want to come to see the GP, but I think the huge amount of hope that hopefully can be spread globally to protect people and reduce deaths, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe you need to work on your injection technique, Liz, if they're all crying when they come to see you.
Yeah, maybe. Oh dear. What about how things have changed sort of church-wise? I think obviously going online, it's been different and kept people going maybe, but what do you feel?
Yeah. Shall I be honest? I've really loved the change to remote church. It suits my personality. I'm quite an introvert. I get very on edge when people come up and hug me and sort of want to do too much talking to me. I don't really like that. So for me, I've actually found I've loved the services. I absolutely love them, and I've loved the flexibility that if I'm always late. Everyone knows I'm always late to everything, so it's really nice to be able to just log in.
Tradition.
Absolutely. So so if I don't get there till 2 in the afternoon, it's fine. I can sit and do church at a time that fits in, and I've loved it. I found it really uplifting, and it's been really good for me this year. How about you? How have you found the switch to remote church?
I think I have missed seeing people, definitely, but I do like the flexibility that if it's a sunny morning you can go for a walk and then do church in the afternoon, and it's been great seeing different people give their testimonies and doing the prayers, so I think I still feel quite connected.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Well, thanks for chatting, Liz. It's been really good.
It's been great. I've just got one quote, if I can find it, that Desmond Tutu said, and this is for everyone really. So he said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness." Very wise man.
Very wise man indeed. Yeah, fabulous.